the Gospel of Thomas, uncovering the 114 hidden sayings of Yeshua. Saying number 1, living interpretation, transcending death. Yeshua said, "Whoever lives the interpretation of these words will no longer taste death." Commentary. This is not a promise of escaping the body, but a declaration of awakening the everlasting life already present within. To live the interpretation is to embody the truth, not merely recite it. To allow the words to transform perception, dissolve fear, and sever the illusion that death has power over the awakened soul. Death rules only where identity is bound to the flesh and the world of appearances. But when one recognizes the kingdom within, death loses its sting because the true self is no longer confined to time, matter, or belief. Yeshua is revealing that immortality is not postponed to a future realm. It is realized now, in consciousness, through lived knowing. Those who awaken to this truth do not wait for life after death. They step into life beyond death while still walking the earth. Number 1, not escape from the body, but awakening within it. The passage begins by correcting a common misunderstanding of spirituality. Yeshua is not offering an escape plan from the body or the world. He is not teaching rejection of physical life or postponing fulfillment until after death. Instead, he's declaring that everlasting life is already present, here and now, but usually unrecognized. Awakening does not remove a person from embodied life. It transforms how life is inhabited. 2, to live the interpretation. This phrase is crucial. It means that truth is not something to be repeated, believed, or defended. It is something to be embodied. To live the interpretation is to let the teaching reshape perception, dissolve fear at its root, undo false assumptions about identity. Words alone do nothing. Only when understanding becomes lived experience does transformation occur. 3. Why fear of death dissolves. The passage explains that death only holds power when identity is confined to form, the body, social identity, memory, belief systems, the visible world. When an individual believes, "This is all I am," death becomes terrifying. But when awareness shifts to the kingdom within, the deeper source of life itself, death loses its authority. It may still occur biologically, but it no longer defines or threatens who one truly is. 4. The kingdom within. The kingdom is not a location, reward, or a future destination. It is a state of recognition. The realization that life's source is not external or postponed, but already active within consciousness. When this is recognized, the self is no longer trapped in time. Identity loosens from matter and appearance. Fear rooted in loss dissolves. This is not belief. It is lived knowing. 5. Immortality redefined. Immortality here does not mean endless continuation of the physical body. It means freedom from being defined by what begins and ends. Yeshua is revealing that immortality is not delayed, not granted later, not dependent on death. It is realized now as a shift in consciousness when one knows life from its source rather than from its temporary expressions. 6. Life beyond death while still alive. The final insight is radical. Those who awaken do not wait for life after death. They step into life beyond death while still walking the earth. This means living without fear of endings, acting from wholeness rather than survival, being present, grounded, and free. Death no longer defines the horizon of existence. Life does. In essence, this passage teaches that awakening does not reject the body, it frees identity within it. Truth must be lived, not recited. Death has power only over false identity. The kingdom is recognized within, not entered later. Immortality is a present realization, not a future reward. Awakened life transcends death before death ever arrives. Yeshua is not promising escape from life, he's unveiling life fully known, where fear dissolves, identity expands, and the soul stands awake in a reality no ending can touch. Contemplation. Yeshua makes a final and decisive turn from hearing to living. He does not say, "Whoever believes these words," nor "whoever explains them correctly," nor even "whoever understands them." He says, "Whoever lives the interpretation of these words." The kingdom is not unlocked by intellect, memory, or doctrine, but by embodiment. Truth remains inert until it is enacted. Words point, life fulfills. To live the interpretation is to allow the sayings to reshape perception, action, and identity. It is to let insight descend from thought into habit, from reflection into presence, from inspiration into way of being. Interpretation here is not commentary, it is alignment. When inner seeing and outer living agree, the words cease to be teachings and become reality itself. And then comes the promise, they will no longer taste death. Death is taste when identity is bound to form, body, role, history, belief. But when one lives from the words awaken, awareness, unity, presence, simplicity, death loses its sting. Change still occurs, bodies still pass, seasons still turn, but the one who lives the truth knows themselves as that which passes through change without being consumed by it. This is not denial or mortality, it is transcendence of fear. To taste death is to experience it as rupture, loss, and finality. To no longer taste death is to recognize it as transition with a larger continuity. What is lived cannot be taken away. What is embodied cannot be undone. What is known directly does not vanish when forms dissolve. So this saying seals the teaching. The words are not set apart because they were spoken. They become set apart when they are lived. And when they are lived fully, death no longer defines the horizon of life. For the one who has become the meaning of the words has already crossed the boundary that death cannot touch. Living example. In everyday life, Yeshua is saying that when a person truly lives out what these teachings point to, rather than just talking about them or believing them in theory, their fear of death no longer controls them. As someone begins to live with honesty, awareness, love, and inner alignment, their sense of identity shifts away from being tied only to the body, roles, or circumstances. They experience life as something deeper and more enduring than what can be lost or taken away. Death will still happen physically, but it no longer feels like a threat or an ending of who they are. In real terms, this means living with freedom, peace, and purpose now, because life is no longer defined by fear or loss, but by a steady awareness that remains intact through every change. Study Note 1. Immortality as present reality. This saying reframes immortality not as an afterlife reward, but as a present state of awakened consciousness. Yeshua is not promising escape from the body or postponing life until death. He is declaring that everlasting life already exists within the awakened one. Immortality is realized now when identity shifts from the perishable self to the everlasting presence within. This challenges time-based religious thinking and calls the seeker into immediate realization that rather than future hope. Study Note 2. Living the interpretation. To live the interpretation means embodiment, not recitation. Truth is not something spoken or memorized, but something lived until it reshapes perception itself. When truth is embodied, fear dissolves, especially the fear of death, because the illusion of separation collapses. Death holds power only over identities rooted in flesh, appearances, and belief systems. Once the kingdom within is recognized, death is exposed as a limitation of perception, not a law of being. Study Note 3: Life Beyond Death While Still Living. Yeshua reveals a radical paradox. One may walk the earth while no longer being governed by death. Those who awaken do not wait for life after death. They enter life beyond death now, through lived knowing. This knowing is not intellectual belief, but direct awareness of the true self, unbound by time, matter, or fear. In this state, death loses its sting because it no longer defines identity, destiny, or consciousness. So to conclude the commentary, saying number 1, living interpretation transcending death. In this opening declaration of the Gospel of Thomas, Yeshua establishes the entire trajectory of the text by shifting the focus from belief to embodiment, from recitation to realization. Whoever lives the interpretation of these words will no longer taste death is not a mystical exaggeration nor a promise of physical immortality. It is a profound statement about identity and awakening. To live the interpretation means that the sayings must move beyond intellectual agreement and become a lived alignment, reshaping perception, dissolving fear, and transforming the way one inhabits the world. Death, in this context, is not merely biological cessation, but the existential fear rooted in mistaken identity. The belief that one is only the body, the role, the memory, or the social construct. When identity is confined to what begins and ends, death appears absolute. But when one awakens to the kingdom within, the living source of awareness itself, death loses its sting because the true self is no longer defined by what passes away. Immortality, then, is not delayed or granted in a distant future. It is realized now as a shift in consciousness. The awakened one still walks the earth, still breathes, still participates in embodied life, yet no longer lives under the shadow of finality. In living the words rather than merely hearing them, the seeker crosses the threshold. Life is no longer measured by duration, but by depth of awareness. Fear dissolves, presence stabilizes, and existence is experienced as continuity rather than rupture. Yeshua is not offering escape from the world, but unveiling a way of being within it, where truth embodied becomes life unbound, and where death, though it may visit the body, can no longer define the horizon of the soul.